Hello and welcome to KPMG's 10 Minutes in Tax, where we take a deep dive in some topical tax issues in 10 minutes. Today we are looking at revenue audits and other interventions. My name is Andrew Egan. I'm a tax director in our Tax Transformation and Technology team. And today I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Etna Kennan, a director in our indirect tax team, and Katie Aragani, a manager in our Tax Transformation and Technology team. Katie, turning to you first. What do you see as the difference between an audit of today versus an audit of 5 to 10 years ago?
Thanks, Andrew. I guess the main difference between an audit of today and an audit a number of years ago is that today it's in a form of an e-audit. So there's a number of differences between how an e-audit is carried out and how an audit would previously have been carried out. Firstly, taxpayers are required to provide a full data set for an audit period. So for example, in a VAT audit, a full year worth of data has to be provided, whereas previously it would have been a sample bi-monthly period data set. This means revenue are interrogating a full year worth of transactions for errors. There's also the additional step of the pre-audit meeting. This meeting doesn't commence the audit and it doesn't impact on the qualifying disclosure opportunity. The meeting typically consists of discussions around the systems in place within the business, so HR, payroll and the finance systems in place. We're also seeing an increasing request from revenue for the preparation of presentations which typically focus on qualitative items such as the business structure, tax processes and controls within the business. And because this is more of a data review rather than a physical records review, less time is being spent by revenue on taxpayer premises, and they've been fully remote for the last 18 months.
Okay, wow, there's quite a lot of changes there, and it's quite a lot more onerous on the taxpayer, if from what I can see. Etna, I know from anecdotally from discussions with various people in revenue that a lot of audit resources have recently been moved towards the COVID supports and helping and administering there. You've taken a look at some of the annual reports from revenue. Is that reflected there, and what other trends can you see?
Andrew, you're right. I mean, looking at that 2020 annual report of revenues, it's really showing how revenue resources were being used and deployed about COVID supports, delivering them, policing them. And that did have a knock-on effect on the number of the audit interventions. So Katie's mentioned that they're taking less time on premises of the business. They're being done remotely, but looking at the numbers of those audit interventions, the numbers are falling. 2018, we had about 4,700. 2019, we had about 3,000. 2020, we just under 1,500. That's a significant decrease in the number of those audit interventions. But alongside that though, there's been an increase in the yield from the average audit intervention, and that's significant. Looking at 2018, there was 55,000 of an average yield. Looking at 2020, even with COVID, the average yield from an audit intervention goes up to 83,000 approximately. That's a significant increase. And why is it? It means even though revenue resources have been used to police and support the COVID rollout of supports, on the other hand, there's really effective targeting by revenue of their resources. They're using risk evaluation systems, they're using e-audit techniques, and that's increasing the yield per audit for them.
That's very interesting. So the yield is up, but the number of interventions is down. So there's a yin and a yang to it, I suppose. Do we see the levels returning to 2018 levels, going back up high? Do we see them staying down low in 2020 levels, or what? I'll ask you the awkward question: what do we see into the future?
Well, one thing won't change in the future. I think it's well established that an audit intervention is expensive and it's time consuming, and it doesn't matter whether you're speaking to revenue about that or the business. But the reality is that compared to the very low numbers in 2020, realistically, we're going to look at an increase in the number of the audit interventions. Again, with that effective use by revenue of their resources. But alongside that, there's going to be a continuing trend, and it's for the non-audit interventions. So your aspect queries, they haven't been affected so much by COVID, and the average yield for the non-audit interventions has increased as well. So that's one to watch. And in looking at those non-audit interventions, we're even seeing revenue look for the full data sets that Katie mentioned earlier for those non-audit ones. So Katie, turning to you, when we talk about e-audits and technology, what does it actually mean, and what technology are you seeing being used by revenue, being used by businesses at the moment?
So the first area where revenue would use technology in the audit is in audit selection. So revenue have a number of risk analysis and profiling systems in place. During the audit, revenue would use IDEA data analysis software, and this is a well-established analytics tool. From a taxpayer perspective, the initial technology would be the source system or systems. So we see many different systems in place with our clients, such as SAP, Sage, Microsoft Dynamics, and many others. From a data review and interrogation perspective, we would use a combination of Excel, IDEA, and Alteryx. So historically, predominantly, we would have used Excel and IDEA, but we're seeing many, many more use cases for the use of Alteryx for data manipulation and interrogation. Finally, although IDEA would have basic visualization features, core visualization tools such as Power BI, ClickSense, and Tableau really help us understand the data we're looking at and the processes, and it helps us identify anomalies and potential issues for review.
Thanks, Katie. I think I'm going to ask you the hard question as well. If we look at audit interventions, what do we see coming down in the future?
So real-time audits are coming. Following the successful implementation of real-time reporting for PAYE in the form of PAYE monetization, we're seeing audits up until the current month. Revenue have alluded to real-time reporting for VAT for the last number of years, and there's growing evidence that this is the next substantial project for revenue in respect of real-time reporting. And as this develops, this will have a huge impact on future interventions.
Okay, thanks Katie, and thanks Etna as well. So I think it's clear from today's discussion that the audit continues to be an effective use of revenue's time and resources. My 3 key takeaways from today's discussion are: number 1, as COVID supports expire and wind down, we expect to see revenue redeploying resources to audits and other interventions. Number 2, the audit has evolved and continues to evolve with the use of new technologies. And number 3, real-time reporting is already impacting PAYE interventions, and that looks to be next on Revenue's agenda. We'll be releasing a series of tax head specific e-audit episodes following on from this video, which will cover employment taxes, VAT, customs and corporation tax. You will find these episodes in the coming weeks on our website. If you have any queries in relation to the matters discussed today, please visit our kpmg.ie tax website for regular updates, and please feel free to contact me, the team, or your usual KPMG contact. Thank you for watching.